You have Patrick Findar here, co-founder at Biz and Visa Franchise. Today we have a special guest, Eddie Sapigao Jr., who's a multi-unit franchisee at Fiesta. They do insurance and tax. Eddie, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys had me on. This is good.
You came from the insurance space, but talking, before we started, you had no idea kind of what you were going into becoming a business owner. And you've grown pretty fast from you being the only employee to now three agencies, 16 employees. I'd love to just dive in a little bit on that journey.
Yeah, so like I was telling you before, I've been in the industry since 2000. So that puts me about 23 years in the industry. Done it all. I've been an agent, I've been a manager, I've been an executive. I've done pretty much all of it in this industry. And so like most people that own small businesses, the bright idea pops in like, why am I not doing this for myself? Right. And so it was about 2013. I was like, why am I not doing this by myself? Like, I'm making these agencies a ton of money. I should be doing it for myself. So 2014, I was like, let's do it. I didn't have too much money saved up. I just was like, I want to do it. Well, let's see what happens. The funniest thing is, it's like, you get these ideas like, I'm going to go out and do it. I'm going to be the best agent owner and I'm going to kill it. Right. Well, some of the things you forget about is like all the money that it takes to run an agency. Like, you work for a big agency and they spend millions of dollars on advertising, right? When you go to your own, you're like, yeah, I don't have even $100,000 for advertising. I don't have $200,000 in advertising. So it just, you kind of like dumb down and you're like, oh, how the heck do I get all these customers that I was getting before? And then reality hits. It's like, you got to work. It's like, hey, I'm back in the mix of it. I'm hitting the ground running. I'm out there running in the parking lot trying to grab customers to come in, and so
You took a pretty big step back to take a big leap forward.
It was a huge step back. I was like a regional salesperson. Before I came on, I had like 50 or 60 employees.
Huh.
I managed 15 locations.
Okay, yeah.
And so when you decide to come on your own, you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my own 15 locations and I'm going to have 50 employees. But when you get in, you're like, day one. I'll never forget day one. I'm sitting in the office. My wife and my daughter are in there because I think they were babies and my wife wasn't working. And my first customer walked in and I almost blanked. I almost like forgot how to do everything. My wife was looking at me when the transaction was done. I sold the policy and she was like, what happened to you? You're like supposed to be this super salesperson. You look like a nervous new employee. And it was just the nerves of it being your first employee. I'll never forget that employee, I'll never forget that customer because it's the first one. And from that point, you just realize like, oh, wow, this is definitely different than working for a corporate. Like, you got to get after it. But, with the hard work comes good reward.
And what type of products are you selling? And I imagine it's kind of seasonal with, taxes, Medicare, open
So
enrollment.
we're 90% in auto insurance, right? We do some commercial auto, we do some homeowners and stuff like that. But like the bulk of our customer, insurance. Tax was new to me because I never did taxes before. Before coming on a Fiesta, too, when you open a business and you're the business owner and your customers come in, they have all the best ideas. I'm telling you, I've heard all the ideas of what I should do. And one of these customers told me before I came on Fiesta, they're like, you need to do taxes. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. I'm an insurance guy. Why would I ever do taxes? Well, lo and behold, she was right. Because when I came on to Fiesta, the tax game is amazing. It's like getting a lump of cash to run you through the whole rest of the year. So you think about it as your insurance. A lot of guys think about it this way. Your insurance is going all year long, and that's bringing in steady income.
Recurring revenue.
That's right.
You sell it, it will get every 6 months you'll get some money in the
sell
bank
it,
account.
you get a fee up front, and then you get the residual every 6 months to 12 months. And then once that builds in, your book of business grows and you're doing pretty good. But tax money is immediate. Like as soon as you do the tax return, you're getting a fat, whatever you're charging, whatever revenue you're getting from taxes, it comes right then and there. So, some people need to go out and get loans when they open a business. For me, I look at it as I just need to get through a tax season.
So when's ideal? You're on three agencies. When would you open up that fourth agency? Would you open it up in like January to get the tax or what?
So the
makes
best
sense?
time, I'm kind of behind the 8 ball right now. The best time to open a new agency is like between October to December. Because you want to be open for the tax season, right? And not necessarily because you want to do a ton of taxes, which we all do, But taxes and insurance, they relate. Our customers, they get their refunds and then they go buy cars and then they need to come and get insurance. So it goes hand in hand. When you have a good tax season, you have a good insurance season. If you're going to open a brand new agency, it's right before the tax season so that you get an influx of customers on both the tax side and the insurance side. And it's going to help ride the wave through the rest of the year.
What are we talking about all in to open up an agency?
All in to open up an agency, I would say you probably need about $100,000. Now, for some people that might sound like a lot. For some people, it doesn't sound like a lot because a lot of franchises sometimes, you need a $500,000 to get in for build out and all this and that.
McDonald's, all those brands, it's like $2 million easy.
Yeah, this is one of the, I don't want to say cheapest because that sounds bad,
it's on the
but the most cost efficient way to start a business with no experience is going the franchise model. You come in with enough cash to do a build out. Build out's going to be about 35, 40 grand. You figure another 20, 30 grand just to run the operation until customers come in. I mean, that's a pretty cheap way to start a business.
And I imagine if you open up, compared to some of your other competitors that just do insurance, I imagine if you open up in October, you can kind of break even much faster than pure insurance because you get those tax guys in and then those are customers you can sell insurance
tax
products
revenue
with.
Is an injection of revenue right to your pocket. And, my best advice would be to anybody is this. When you get in, you open up in October, you start ramping customers, you get an agent, you and one person working in there. Don't spend the money because you're going to get a ton of money during tax season. Save it and use it to build on the business. Some people will come in and they're like, oh my God, look at all this money that came in from taxes, whether it's 20 grand, 50 grand, 30 grand, 100 grand.
Your customers are buying cars. It's like, I'm going to buy a car too.
So I'm going to go buy a car. Don't do it. Just pocket the money and let it float you through the rest of the year.
What do you want to see usually, like managing these three businesses, like 3 months, 4 months of working capital? What's like a good...
I'm very much on the conservative side of things. So I like to have 5 to 6 months of working capital. Because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we all saw what happened during COVID. Now, fortunate for us, our business model didn't take a hit like a lot of others did. But, if you don't have working capital and you run out of money, then what? It's almost like going back to working paycheck to paycheck. You don't want to run a business that way because then you're not going to take the risks that you need to get the customers.
And what are some ways that your colleagues finance their Fiesta franchise? Do they take out SBA loans or what are some of the ways?
Some of them do SBA loans. Some of them, it just depends on if they're starting brand new, but a lot of them will just take a loan out or some of them have the money saved. Sure. Again, if you're looking to get into business and you don't have some money saved, just don't do it. And
it's better to maybe work at an agency first and then you can start a franchise after.
You have to have some skin in the game, right? Meaning you got to have some liquid cash to be able to spend. You don't want to go get caught up in a bunch of loans right away out the gate. I mean, if you do take a loan, let's just make sure their interest rates and everything makes sense. But hey, look, I know I'm in here to tell everybody that this is the way to go, and it is. But you also have to be backed pretty decently. Don't come in with, hey, I have 10 grand in the bank and I'm going to make it happen.
No, keep working, save up.
Keep working and build that lump up until you have a decent amount of, cash to get you through the tough times. Because
how do you see with other franchisees that didn't come from the insurance agency? Is it a really hard ramp up in terms of understanding the product or?
No. So the beautiful thing about Fiesta is, let me tell you, when I opened my own agency, I had a wealth of information and
you probably had too much about all these other insurance products.
Way too much. And so my mind was going all these different ways. One of the best things about coming on board with Fiesta when I decided to roll my agency into Fiesta was having people to talk to, right? There's a corporate team. They're not just here to take what their piece of it. They're really here to help you grow. So Fiesta's benefit is, hey, Patrick, you got your first location. Let's get you getting multiple locations. It's going to benefit the franchise and it's going to benefit you. So when you have a team of people helping guide you that direction, it's great. When I had my own independent agency and I was by myself, I had to rely on my insurance carrier reps. Like, what's everybody else doing? Hey, what's the insurance agency up the street doing? Are they doing good? And, they're not giving you the full truth. But when you come on to Fiesta, you have people to talk to. There's people in corporate that help you out. You get to see what other franchise owners are doing. Because sometimes you might be doing just fine, but in your mind, you're like, I'm not doing good. This I'm
No, yeah, you
sucking
can
right now.
easily benchmark, and everyone wants the brand to go up. And
That's right. It's a team effort. It's collectively a team effort. I mean, the guys in corporate, they do a great job. There's some things that we like, there's some things we don't like, but that's business. Like,
yeah,
not everything is going to roll your way and it's just going to be, a fantasy land of, oh, this is perfect. There's some do's and don'ts, and there's going to be some pros and there's some cons, but definitely one of the pros is having a team. I can get on the phone. I can call, our CFO and say, hey, look, I'm running my business model this way. What do you suggest? Or call our salesperson and say, hey, look, I'm having trouble with gaining sales this way. What do you recommend? Well, here's what some of the other franchise owners are doing. Having a team right off the bat when you have a small business is very, very critical.
yeah. And like, if you had just your own independent agency, to have a fractional CFO, to have all these,
We
like,
don't. We
you
don't have
couldn't
that.
afford it. It
Absolutely
wouldn't
not.
make
You're
sense.
you're the janitor, you're the CFO, you're the CEO, you're your COO, you're the agent, you're whatever, you're the grocery shopper, you're whoever it needs to be. So it's all what's up here, right? And if you just have any doubt or wonder of like, okay, where are we at in the market? You got to guess. I mean, yeah, you can read up and you can do some studies, but right then and there in the thick of it, you don't know. And so that was my hardest thing coming from corporate structure, having people that I could lean on, having people to lean on me. When you go by yourself, it's just you.
It seems like also an emotional component where you
Absolutely.
have camaraderie, where, the first 18 months of any startup business is a roller coaster, hopefully trending up and going up, but a lot of ups and downs
There's going to be a
to
lot of
get
ups and
there.
downs. And if you don't have somebody there cheering you on, it's tough. It is tough. That was the biggest thing when I first brought my independent agency over to Fiesta, because I was a conversion. I had an
Sure.
agency for 2 years. A buddy of mine was working for Fiesta, and he was like, hey, man, these people, they have the same mentality as you and they want to grow. I think they could really help you. So it took me a while to bite the bullet and say, all right, I'm getting rid of my brand that I built for 2 years, which I thought that was a lot, right? To go on with another brand. But when I came onto the brand, one of the most important things was for me, the breath of fresh air was I had somebody to talk to at corporate about, hey, I'm handling the trust accounting this way, or hey, I'm seeing these trends in the market. What about you?
Hmm.
When you're by yourself, you don't have anybody else. You have
How about
you.
also on the product side and what you're selling? Is it easier just like tapping into Fiesta's like negotiated contracts and
So
auto
look, and
carriers?
we all you pay a royalty with when you come onto a
Yeah.
franchise, right? For me, it was like I wasn't paying a royalty because when you start out a brand new agency on your own, the commission structure is 10% of commission upfront, whether you're getting it earned or upfront, paid upfront, and then at renewal time, it's another 10%. When you come onto Fiesta, it's like 15%, 17%. So that little bit of a royalty that you're paying is
Huge.
offset by the amount of commission you're
So it's
getting
like a 40 to 60% increase in
increase.
revenue. And then
Absolutely.
whatever the royalty will bring that down, but it's still a pretty big net.
It downs a little bit, but you still work out ahead. And I don't care, Patrick, if you were the most known person out there, if all the carriers, all the people, when I say carriers, these are the insurance companies that represent us, right? It doesn't matter if they know Patrick's an all-star. When Patrick decides to go open his own agency, they're like, hey, buddy, I'm glad you came to this side, but we're giving you 10-10. I'm glad you were a superstar for that company. Show us that you can do it on your own, and then maybe we'll negotiate you up from there. But that's the deal of it is you get the bottom of the barrel no matter who you are and how long you've been in the industry. And that's one of the things I didn't understand in the beginning either.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit because then you don't, as a small business owner, you don't have to worry about the product side of what you're selling. You can, correct me if I'm wrong, focus on selling and building a team.
You get to focus on what you typically do best at, right? And most people that are small business owners were very good in the sales and the service side of this thing.
Yes.
And that's what you get to focus on. There's a lot of things that corporate takes off of your hands that some franchise owners that have never had their own independent agency, they don't understand. It's trust accounting, which is dealing with the commission, the money to the insurance companies. It's like hard work in its own, right?
I can
Making sure,
imagine.
yeah, you're like taking care of their money, plus you're taking care of your money. And then you don't have much money and you see all this money in this other account and you're like, oh, I could just, no, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. So just them taking on the trust accounting is like a breath of fresh air, right?
Yeah. Also, I imagine the liability of just like
The
having that
liability is
sit. Like, I don't want to have it sit on my firm. I'd rather have it.
no, I don't want to deal with it at all. Let me just deal with the
Yeah.
money that I get to keep and spend. I don't want to deal with
Yeah.
somebody else's money, right?
Yeah. You can't be an insurance agent, tax, and banker. You didn't sign up for all of that.
No. And eventually you do become that, right? Eventually you do. But when you have one agency, one office, you're working. You're working to build to get multiple locations so then you can take a step back.
And I know the attractive thing is the recurring revenue nature of having an insurance agency, and then the resell. So imagine, for you, your kid doesn't want to take over the agency, the network you're building. I understand, like, they sell at a much higher multiple from what you had invested. So if you invested
Absolutely.
100K, hopefully you're getting a lot more than that when it comes time to
I mean,
sell.
you could, if you start out with 100K and you build something, let's imagine you start out with 100K and you build that from that 100K, you build 5 locations, you sell it for 2.5 million. What's the math, right? Like, it's a no brainer.
And what's that? It's possible in, would you say, 7 years, 10 years, you can get that?
Let's see. I've got 3 locations. I've been with Fiesta since 2017. So what, we're pushing just past 5 years?
Yeah, not bad.
My math right? I don't know. My math's right. Yeah. I could probably sell for a nice chunk of change right now.
And what's the multiple? Is it based on the revenue of the book, or is it based on
So
how much the owner
listen,
earns?
the right way to do it is based off of EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people like to just do this whole multiple times your revenue. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense to me, but hey, if that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing. If you're selling outside of Fiesta, you're selling based on EBITDA, right?
Okay.
So X amount of number, based on how good your book is doing, you get X amount of number times your EBITDA. A lot of franchise owners sometimes will just sell based on their revenue, which, hey, however you decide to do it is you decide to do it. But if I could sell based on my revenue right now, I might, you never know.
There's one thing, I guess, if you're working day to day in just one agency, and I imagine the discretionary earnings is going to be quite high, but imagine you have multiple ones, like at the agency level, like what kind of EBITDA margin are you aiming for? Is it 30%, 25%?
To make it even easier than that, man, the
Yeah,
goal would be to just make profit $3,000 to $5,000 per store per month.
solid. Yeah.
That's the easiest way to look at it, because you can say I want to be at a 20% margin, I want to be at 30% margin. 30% margin obviously is going to be like you're killing the game, right?
So
For somebody
30% margins, like a guy who he has one agency, he's working it all day, not so many employees.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's fair.
I mean, it just depends, man. It depends on how you run your stuff. I'm probably running close to 25 to 30% margin with 3 locations, 16 employees. It just really depends. But to dumb it down and make it real simple for somebody, your goal is to get in and make $5,000 a month profit.
I like
You
that.
do that,
So
you're
open,
solid.
hit 5K a month.
5K a month, right? You
Yeah.
want to profit 5K a month per store. Now, when you have one location, you're like, well, if I do 5K a month, that's really not, I'm making 60 grand a year. That's the way
Yeah.
it sounds, right? No, it's not. Because when you're hitting 5K a month, now you're opening your next location. Then that next one is 5. Now you're at 10K per month. Then the next one, now you're at 15K per month, right? So if you're 3 to 5K per store, you're on a good track. That's my personal belief. You're going to have some other franchise owners that are like, no way, I need to make 10K per store. Whatever the case is. I'm saying if you get in and make 3 to 5K a month, you're going to be doing all right.
Yeah, I
You're
like
going to be
that.
doing fine, because that you're covering your business expenses, you're covering everything else, and you're pocketing that money.
I'm a
And
big
in the
fan of like
beginning,
kind of goals, like time to open. I guess for you guys, it's like get the license, open 3K, 5K,
3K,
second
5K, open
store.
another store. Yep. Boom. 3K, 5K, third store.
That's sick. So all
That's
this can be
wonderful.
done in what, 24 months?
I don't know if it could be done in
Yeah.
24 months as far as like, oh, you mean opening a second location?
Yeah, doing everything, like hitting those 5 steps.
I
Is
think
it more
so.
conservative, like 3 years to get all that done?
So for my first location to get an ROI was like 18 months. And then the second location was a little bit quicker because I knew what I was doing. I knew how to do it. So, 12 months to 16 months.
Okay,
And,
that's solid.
I don't know if anybody's been able to crack the code and get any lower than that. But you figure a solid 12 months. But once you have one location generating revenue, and then you get that second one, even if it takes 16 months, 18 months to get that one revenuing,
And is it
like
just like it just kind of trends up slowly? Like after,
so like in the beginning, you're looking for like you're looking for a steep trend, right?
yeah.
And then it starts to go like this.
Okay.
right? But still, as long as it's not like this, you're good.
Yes.
Right? If I have a buddy that's a franchise owner with Fiesta, and he's crazy. His motto is, if I make $1 more, it's worth it to me. And if he watches this, he'll know who I'm talking about. I don't want to call his name out. He has a lot of locations, but that's his mentality. And I'm like, you're crazy, but I mean, it's been working for him. So if I make $1 more in profit, I'm happy, right? Because then you have the ability to grow it, and having ability is just key. But boiling it back down to somebody coming on, because I just don't think that we're going to attract somebody that has $5 million that's like, hey, I want to come in and I'm going to open up 20 locations right off the bat. That's not, or I don't think
It
that
seems
that's
like someone that is willing to grind it and like really set the culture, cultivate the talent, be in front of the customers. And
you
I've
can
heard
change
there
your
are
lifestyle.
Fiesta franchisees with 20 plus locations, but the idea is, I guess, start with one and grow
I mean,
it, grow it from there.
there's one guy with like almost 50 locations. I mean, he has an enterprise in his own, you know what I
And he
mean?
started
And
with one.
yeah, I think he started with one.
Yeah, that's
I think he
wild.
started with one. There's guys with 30, 20, 10. And then there are people that only have one. There's guys with only one store because that's what they want.
Yeah.
My thing is, you got to want to grow it. You don't have to grow at light speeds, right? Take me, for example. I've only got 3. I've been with the franchise for 5 years. I would have, if you would have talked to me in the very beginning, I would be like, in 5 years, I'll have 15 locations. Right? That was my mindset, my goal. And I still want to get to 10
But
to
everyone
15
has also
locations.
different things going on in their life, like with the family. Maybe you want to spend more time with family for a period of your life, and then the kids are
Yep.
like a little older, and then you're back to it. I see that a
Yep.
lot with when the kids like hit their teenage years. It's like back to the game, and like
Back to the grind.
they're all in. Yeah,
That's kind of where I'm at now. I have 2 at home. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year at home, and they're
yeah. So
almost like,
case in point.
now I can kind of get back to the grind and get after it. But I will say, like, I don't want to scare anybody away from coming to the franchise, because I'm saying you have to work hard in the beginning. That's case
Every
in point, right?
franchise
Like,
should tell you this is what it is, and I'm so sick of it. There's so much out there now
fluff.
about passive,
Oh,
semi-investor,
yeah.
and it really, really works. Like there's a
I
reason.
don't I
Like
don't know any franchise owner, because I know some in different units and different
yeah,
brands. I don't know any successful franchise owner that didn't work his tail off in the beginning. I don't know
no,
any.
yeah, you have to set the culture, and no one's going to care about the customers and your employees as much as you.
And your employees need to see that you're vested. They need to see that you care. Now I don't work in the store like I used to. I don't,
And that's fine, but
5 years
you
later,
paid
I'm
you
not.
paid your dues.
I've paid my dues, and now my goal is to just try to open locations and actually run it as a CEO or as an owner or something, like however you want to label it, the decision maker, the entrepreneur, right? But you have to build a team, and you have to trust the team, because without trusting the team, forget it. You're going to be stressing about your locations all the time.
Eddie, could you see yourself acquiring an existing Fiesta or even an existing independent and then
Absolutely.
converting it?
That's where my mind focus is right now. I want to open up some more organic stores, but now I'm sitting and waiting for franchise owners to say, you know what, it's time for me to move on. I want to sell. Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely one of the ways to get more locations is through acquisition, for sure.
And I guess the benefit of that, talking to other franchisees that have grown that way, is it becomes you can have more unique seller financing because these are your friends and colleagues for the last
Yep.
5+ years, and they trust you. They know you're going to run the business well, and they're going to get their loan payments, and it gives a little more
Yeah.
flexibility.
A huge portion of buying franchise owners is owner financing, right? I mean, nobody wants, especially right now, the SBA charging whatever it
Yeah.
is, 12, 13%
10, 11,
interest.
12%.
It's high. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Now you just work it out with your peer, and your peer is like, hey, I'm done. I want to get out of the game. Well, let's negotiate terms and let's get it done. But yeah, that's one of the unique things at coming in and acquiring another franchise owner.
But if you weren't already in the system, they'd be like, "Who's this Eddie guy? Like,
I don't know
how
you.
do I know I'm going to get my
How do
money
I know?
back?"
Exactly. If you're not in the system, you don't have locations, how are they going to know that you're going to stand behind what you say?
Well, Eddie, we've covered a lot today. Can you think of any pending items for prospective franchisees to keep in mind as they evaluate going into business ownership for themselves?
I think we hit a lot of stuff. My biggest thing is come in ready to work and don't spend your money. Just wait 12 months.
I
before
like that.
you start spending that
No
money.
dividends first 12 months.
I don't think so. I mean, pay yourself
Yeah.
enough to get by if that's what you need to do. Refocus the money back into the business because the real money comes from multiple locations, right? A buddy of mine told me that's in the industry. He was like, yeah, you feel like you're doing good with one location. He's like, when you get to 3 or 4, that's when you really start making money. And he didn't lie. I mean, that's when it gets to where your lifestyle starts to change. So for anybody thinking on coming on with a brand, if you decide and you commit to doing it, just commit to working your butt off for the first 12 months, get some employees, teach them, and then try to duplicate. And you'll
One
be
last question. When do you decide to hire that first employee?
I think decided to hire that first employee when I had enough customers coming in that I couldn't handle by myself.
Okay.
I think I
You're
literally
tapped
got
out.
to the point where I was like writing 60 apps a month, and that was probably overkill. I probably should have hired if I could go back, right? Remember, we asked those questions if you can go back and do something different. If I could go back, I would hire an employee sooner
Okay.
because in the beginning, I was like, I don't want to spend the money. But in reality, having another employee just makes you more money. Yeah.
Can you think of anything else you would have done differently?
Be specific on location, right? You know, they say the saying of opening a business has always been location, 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 and be specific of location. I think that's it. If you just have the work mentality in your mind that you're working towards actually owning something, and I think that those are really the key takeaways: is come in, work really hard, hire your first employee, open another location.
I love it. Dumb it down.
That's it.
Well, Eddie, I really appreciate your time, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully this helps somebody in the future and we
No, it
can get
definitely
some
will.
people to join on and make some money.
Awesome. And we'll leave links to Fiesta Insurance in case anyone's interested in exploring owning a Fiesta franchise.
Nice.
Thanks, Eddie.
All right. Thank you. Take care.